Well, hello there, students. Today we're going to look at ordering real numbers. And we're going to take notes on this, and a lot of this is going to be a review, but we're going to do a quick review on it. Let's say that I have 5 different numbers as they're listed right here, but they're all in a different form. So I need to put them all in the same form so that I can compare them. And so what I would suggest is that you put them all into decimal form. So that's what we're going to do in this video, is show you how to convert all of these numbers into decimals, and then we can compare them from that. Okay? So the first one is turning a fraction into a decimal. Well, our fraction is 5/8. And we need to take that and convert it into a decimal. Well, if I did it by hand, I'd have to divide. I'm going to turn the paper sideways so I have a little bit more room. And so in order to do this, I do 5 divided by 8. So 5 goes inside the house and 8 goes outside the house. And I know that 8 won't go into 5 evenly, so I have to put a decimal and a 0. And so I'm going to put the decimal at the top. And 8 goes into 56 times. So 6 times 8 is 48. Subtract 2. We have to add another 0 because we're not done. 0, and then bring down a 0. And then 8 goes into 22 times. And 2 times 8 is 16. And I subtract, and I get 4. Well, I'm still not done, so I have to bring down another 0. Add a 0. And 8 goes into 45 times. 8 times 5 is 40. I'm done. So the answer is 0.625. But you know what? We got a calculator. So why don't we just do that by calculator? So with a calculator, I would do 5 divided by 8. Because remember, this is America, and in America we read from top to bottom and left to right. So we put it in the calculator just like you see it, 5 divided by 8. And when you put that into the calculator, you get 0.625. Now what you might find, I'm going to show you on the calculator how we do this. As soon as I get to the window, if I do 5 divided by 8 and I hit enter, it gives me 5/8. Well, I don't want to know that. I need to know what the decimal is. Well, here's what happens. You see right above the enter sign, there's these squiggly lines. So in order to get a decimal, I have to do control enter after I do 5 divided by 8. So I'll do 5 divided by 8, and then I do control, you can't see it, and then enter. And that gives me the decimal, 0.625. So anytime you're looking for a decimal, make sure you hit the control button before you hit enter, and it will give you a decimal. Okay? So now let's go back. We've done our fraction, so we're going to put a little check mark there, and right under it I'm going to put 0.625. And the next one says change a mixed number to a decimal. Well, our mixed number is 1 1/6. Man, this is crazy. So if I'm going to change a mixed number to a decimal by hand, what I have to do is turn it into an improper fraction. So I do 6 times 1 is 6, plus 1 is 7, and that equals 7/6. And then I'm going to turn sideways, and I'm going to do 7, which goes in the house, divided by 6. 6 goes into 7 one time. 1 times 6 is 6. I subtract, and I get a 1. Well, I have to put my decimal and my 0, which I forgot to do. And so I bring down a 0. 6 goes into 10 one time. 6 times 1 is 6. And I subtract and get a 4. So I bring down another 0. 6 goes into 40 6 times. 6 times 6 is 36. Subtract and get a 4. Oh, this is going to be repeating. So bring down another 0. 6 goes into 40 6 times. 6 times 6 is 36. And it's going to be a repeating decimal. So it's 1.166666666, or the way I would write that is 1.16 repeating. Okay? Now if I was going to do that on the calculator, this is the tricky part. If I'm going to convert on a calculator 1 1/6, I'm going to put an equal sign. I am going to go ahead and just put the 1, because I know it's going to be a 1, and I know there's going to be a decimal after the 1, because it's 1 1/6 or 1 in part of something, so I know that's going to be 1 point something, and I'm going to ignore that whole 1. Now I'm going to do 1/6 on the calculator, So I'm going to do 1 divided by 6, but I'm trying to get a decimal, so I have to do Control Enter, and I get, see that, 0.166667. It rounded the last digit, but this tells me that it's repeating. So I'm going to put 1 and then 1 divided by 6. Okay? So I first give myself the 1 because I know that's going to be the whole number, and then 1 divided by 6 equals 0.16 repeating. So if I'm doing it by calculator, it's going to give me 1.167 because it always rounds that last digit. Okay? So we converted to a mixed number to a decimal, so I'm going to change that to 1.167, and we can check mark that one. Now it asks me to change a percent to a decimal. Well, my percent is 62%. So by hand, if I'm going to change percent to a decimal, I always move the decimal 2 places to the left. That's converting from percent to decimal. So if I have 62%, there's no decimal in that number, so that means it's always at the end. And if I move it 2 places to the left, that gives me 0.62. So 62% changed to a decimal would be 0.62. Now if I'm going to do that on the calculator, we know that percent is always out of 100. So I'm going to do 62 divided by 100. And once again, because it's a calculator, or this calculator, 62 divided by 100, I have to do Control Enter if I want the decimal, and that gives me 0.62. Okay, so we're going to change this percent to 0.62. We got it. All right. And now the last thing we're going to do is change the square root to a decimal. Let me scoot over here. So I'm going to change the square root to a decimal. Well, the square root is the square root of 2. With the square root of 2, you cannot do that by hand. It's impossible. So we're going to cross that out. We're not going to do it by hand. We're going to use our calculator. You'll remember this. To find the square root of 2, we go Control X squared, and then type the 2, and hit Enter. And there it is, 1.41421. So with the calculator, I just do square root of 2 equals 1.414. Okay. So now we've converted each one of these numbers to a decimal, 1.414. And so now I need to put them in, oh, I've got this other 1.87, but it's already a decimal, so I don't need to do anything to it. Okay, so now what I do is figure out which one is the smallest. And we've got a number line here, and so we're going to place them on the number line. The smallest number, I've got 0.625, 0.62, what comes after that? 0. If there's not a number, we put a 0. I've got 1.414, 1.167, and 0.87, and then I'm going to add another 0, so they're all to 3 decimal places. Now you don't have to always put it to 3 decimal places. Sometimes you can put it to 2 decimal places. But you got to be careful. If I just convert it to 2 decimal places, these two numbers would be very close, so I want to put it to 3 decimal places. So let's see. I've got 625, 620, 1.414, 1.167, and 0.870. So the smallest of all of those numbers is the 0.620. So that's going to be 62%. It's going to go first. What comes after that? You guessed it, 5/8. Because 0.620 and then 0.625. The next one is going to be 0.870. So that's going to be 0.87. And why am I writing it like these? Because these are original numbers. I always write the original numbers back on the number line. The next one is between 1.414 and 1.167. Well, 167 is smaller than 414, so the next one is going to be 1 and 1/6. And then finally, the largest number that I have is the square root of 2. So I converted all of them to decimals and then put them in order from smallest to largest or least to greatest. So remember, always convert them to the same form and then put them in order. That's all for today.